Dystopia warning. Obviously. In the last 5 years of making political content online, I've found that there's one overarching constant, and that is, no matter how bad things get, they always get worse. Our political landscape is in constant decline. Our economic and political institutions are not just open to corruption, particularly in Britain due to a lack of written constitution, but our economic models are failing, and they have been for some time. Now, there's a group of extremely wealthy people in the world that know that this is happening, and they're trying to take matters into their own hands in order to protect their capital, their assets, their vast fortunes. Now, a number of people have asked me if I think that Elon Musk did that gesture deliberately. Based on what I know of him, absolutely. And don't just take my word for it. Look at this side-by-side comparison of what he did at the inauguration and what another man did at a rally. Remember what George Orwell said, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and your ears. These people are trying to convince everyone that 2 + 2 = 5. The thing that I found the most disgusting about all of this is how people are falling over themselves, probably because they're scared to get sued by a guy that's got over 400 billion in the bank. But they're falling over themselves to excuse it. Whether or not he did it deliberately, I think he did, is irrelevant, because right-wing extremists are celebrating him anyway. But why do I think that he did it deliberately? Oh, I don't know. Could it be his support for the AfD? A short time ago, he hosted Alice Weidel, a woman who said Hitler wasn't a conservative, he wasn't a libertarian, he was a communist, socialist, and we are the opposite. Musk agreed. What about his association with Dominic Cummings, another eugenicist? The fact he's been actively promoting Golding from the BNP, pushing people that are spouting anti-Jewish conspiracy on Twitter, his persistent support of Tommy Robinson and contribution to race riots in Britain by spreading disinformation as a political strategy or an ideological strategy. Either way, the outcome's the same. I mean, when you look at it, Tommy Robinson's financial supporters have links to Musk and Trump and Nigel Farage. One of Tommy Robinson's financial supporters is American multi-millionaire Trump ally Patrick Michael Byrne, who fully encouraged Trump's coup, spoke at the January 6th rally, and maintains ties with a Russian intelligence agent sanctioned by the West for promoting disinformation about the invasion of Ukraine. And then, of course, there's Morton Messerschmidt, who congratulated Nigel Farage on being elected to British Parliament. Morton Messerschmidt's youth organisation was given a conviction for incitement to racial hatred in 2002 after it argued crimes such as rape was a product of a multi-ethnic society. And then there's, of course, Nigel Farage's links to far-right parties in Europe. He has links to fascists going back 20 years. He also has links to misogynists like Tate. He has regularly praised Putin. His candidates for reform have pretty interesting views. Elon Musk didn't do anything by accident. I would say that he did it very deliberately and very brazenly. He felt emboldened to stand on that stage and twice deliberately do that gesture, knowing that not only would many people defend him, but many people would be too afraid to call it what it is. Not only that, but the gesture that he made is fully aligned with the content that he supports, promotes and posts online. It is fully aligned with his ideology. Now, a huge thank you to all of you that tuned in the other day for my video in which I outlined some of the study that was carried out recently by Peter Thornburg and Juliana Shuri. A very timely study which pointed out something that many of us already know, that it's the radical populist right exclusively that implements misinformation or disinformation as a political strategy. Anyone that has a basic understanding of these techniques and how disinformation is being spread online directly by Musk, alongside Russian interference, I sadly suspect that Trump etc. are in on that and are traitors working against their own country and Western democracy as a whole. Well, one of the key components of that study, to refresh your memory, was the difference between how left-wing and right-wing populists implement their rejection of the elite and why. As I said, the left focus primarily on the economic elite and economic grievances such as neoliberalism, the failures of capitalism, whereas misinformation campaigns are more suitable for the communication strategies of right-wing populist parties. And the last bit is the most important bit, yet I didn't highlight it for some reason. Whilst the radical right seeks to overthrow democratic institutions in favour of strong authoritarian leaders, the left tends to celebrate participation, direct democracy and processes. The reason I'm refreshing your memory about that one particular aspect of the study, well done if you made your way through that as well, because it is really grim reading, is because I've spoken to you before about a far-right international network of people posing as patriots whilst being traitors. Now the Nerd Reich, the Broverlords, whatever you want to refer to them as, they have shared goals and they are aligning themselves with the view that liberal democracy needs to be destroyed. You see a lot of them referring to things like the legacy media. They're trying to market real journalism which has checks and balances, acts without fear and favour, is accredited, regulated to ensure that the public receives the factual information that they should have access to in a democracy. Instead, favouring the trust me bro, listen to this YouTuber approach which has no checks and balances. Because as we all know, any twat can pick up a microphone or put their phone on a tripod and talk absolute shit. I mean, myself included. I've always told people that my opinion, my research is not infallible, although I do check and source everything that I put out. I'm not a journalist. All I'm doing is relaying journalism that I feel does not get the reach that it should. And my channel is a counter to the swathes of right-wing voices, mouthpieces and bias and propaganda that we are flooded with daily from multiple sources. The sad thing is that all of our information sources are owned by the right. This quote does a very good job of summarising that. An oligarchy of private capital cannot be effectively checked even by a democratically organised political society, because under existing conditions private capitalists inevitably control directly or indirectly the main sources of information. That used to be tabloid journalism, broadsheet journalism, newspapers and broadcasters only, but we're in a new age now. Our technology has advanced faster than we are able to keep up with. What I was saying about the international far-right network having a common view that liberal democracy needs to be destroyed. Why? Why do they opt for authoritarians? Because it's about self-protection of the elites, of the wealthy. Under authoritarian rule, our rights dissipate. Fewer freedoms for common people, but more freedom for capital and assets. Deregulation. And crypto's a part of that. And that's why old Mr. Tits Pervert, Musk, Thiel, Bezos, etc. are all moving further right. A Meta lawyer has even quit the case, citing Zuckerberg's descent into toxic masculinity and neo-Nazi madness. So these people know that there's a crisis in terms of the capitalist systems, the very capitalist systems that made them exceedingly rich. And what they see as a liberal democracy are again systems that are trying to give that kind of opportunity to everyone, regardless of whether or not they inherit, I don't know, money from their dad's fucking emerald mine or have inherited family wealth like the Trumps from which to build an empire. So they call on the classic, racist tropes like the Great Replacement theory, conspiracy. They try to make out that, the whiteys are being taken over. And the millionaires or billionaires or ultra-rich people like, say, Bill Gates, imperfect figure, but someone that realises that we needed to invest in our institutions, our infrastructure, was more interested in philanthropy, right? Massive conspiracy theories aimed at him. And how are they looking to implement this? Broadly, eugenics, blaming people in society that they see as inferior or not useful or not productive. Now, the sick and the disabled fall under that, because they're not seen as useful to these men who fail to understand inequality of opportunity because they've always had money. But chillingly, other people on that list include people of different races that they see as automatically inferior, based on outdated racist tropes. So they want to depopulate, bidding executive orders which enables access to medications that people of all incomes can afford. All of the Broverlords, whether it's Thiel, Musk, Zuckerberg, all have the same common solution. Authoritarianism, because authoritarianism is protection of the thing that matters the most to them, and that is their extraordinary wealth. Now, it's a real head scratcher to figure out how Trump managed to win this election with virtually all of the most powerful and rich people in America on his side, with the owners of the biggest social media companies on his team. Now, I watched the inauguration. It was like a fever dream. It truly was a nightmare blunt rotation scenario. Conor McGregor found civilly liable for brutally assaulting Nikita Hand. Russell Brand, who's facing allegations, including one from a girl who said when she was 16, the then 30-odd-year-old Russell Brand arranged for a car to pick her up from school. And then a subsequent horrific story of sexual violence. And that's before we even get on to the people in his cabinet. Conor McGregor, I hasten to add, pictured shaking hands with Nigel Farage. What do you expect from a man who has James McMurdoch amongst his MPs, a man that went to prison for brutally kicking his girlfriend? Now, things are already starting to get pretty bleak when it comes to online censorship of anyone that's not far right. Just today, Stand Up to Racism had their Facebook page shut down for calling out Musk's salute and for urging people to join a demo opposing Tommy Robinson. They were told their page went against community standards. And what causes do they support? Defending migrant rights, seeking justice for Grenfell, welcoming refugees, stating quite rightly that Black Lives Matter. I mean, what a bunch of bastards. But that goes against Facebook's community standards now. I've already had this problem. I can't even mention Robinson's name in any form of video on TikTok without getting it taken down. Whilst we might not see outright censorship on all counts, unlike this, what we will see are dissenting voices pushed down the chain, shadow banned, the algorithm refusing to promote what they're saying, report bots censoring anyone that thinks differently because free speech. Things are already looking very, very bleak. I will level with you, I've spent the last couple of days trying to wrap my head around it, and I'm not entirely sure that I'm close to doing that. So much has happened in such a short amount of time that is beating down quite a lot of people that I know that talk about politics, but just people generally, who are despairing, finding family members already being manipulated by online radical content that is causing even people that were once reasonable to support people like Farage and Robinson. This is entirely by design. As I have stated, this is a political strategy, and I have no idea how the fuck we're going to counter it. But unless we want authoritarian rule, which protects solely the assets and capital of the richest people in the world, as we find our rights systematically stripped away, well, we have to try to resist that in whatever way we can. Don't reject the evidence of your eyes and your ears. You know what he did. He knows what he did. The world knows what he fucking did. And it should terrify everybody that he was emboldened enough to do that twice on the global stage with the entire world watching him. And it is, I fear, just a taster of what's to come. Now, if you'd excuse me, I'm off to drink an entire vat of Valium.